Hi, welcome to Chamber Connection. I'm Mary Hodson, President of the Chamber of Commerce here in Hutchinson, Minnesota. I say that because we've gotten several calls this last month from, yes, you guessed it, Kansas. In fact, we even had someone register for our very popular Hutchinson Leadership Institute from Oklahoma, thinking they were just going to travel to Kansas for it. Yes, this is what happens. Hey, we always bring you timely topics, and this one's really important for a lot of people. And so I'm hoping if you're watching this that you're going to pass on the information today to a lot of different people. Why is this so important? It's about childcare and how it's very difficult to find childcare openings for people in our community, in our state, really probably the country. But I have asked one of my cohort partners to join me today, and we're going to talk about the Rural Child Care Innovation Program. Welcome to Liz Danielson.
Thank you.
Liz, you are the Economic Development Coordinator for the County of McLeod County, correct?
Correct.
And what does that mean? Tell people that's a lot of stuff. What's Economic Development Coordinator?
Well, as you dig into it, you kind of find that really everything relates to economic development, but really some of the priorities are just workforce development, tax-based stability and growth, and supporting our existing business community in the county.
I think that sums it up perfectly. So in the chamber world, we say all roads lead back to workforce.
Yes.
And in this instance, it's a short road, right, to smash into the wall of workforce.
Yes. A lot of roads lead into it.
A lot of roads right into it, but childcare is certainly one of them, and there's going to be a lot of people who have a lot of questions today. So I'm going to ask you a lot of questions, and between the two of us, we're going to try to explain what we're doing in this cohort of 20-some people. So let's start diving into, can you explain what the Rural Childhood Innovation Program is?
Yes, I'll try to do my best. Basically, it's a program offered by an organization called First Children's Finance. And the way that we got involved, as you know, you applied to the program on behalf of the city of Hutchinson because you were seeing some of the needs out there that keep reoccurring about childcare issues and barriers to getting childcare. And so you submitted an application for the city to be considered for this program that they put on, which tries to address, as you mentioned, childcare is not unique to being an issue for us, but First Children's Finance does realize that it has a unique set of problems to rural areas, which we're in.
So I'm just going to jump in because I think that childcare not only affects the parents that need childcare, but it also affects the employers looking for people to work.
Yes.
Who don't have childcare.
Yes.
And it also affects people who want to have a childcare business, whether they want to have a center or an in-home family program. And so we're looking at it very holistically.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what's really important for everybody to know. Like today we're going to show you the parent survey, but we're here to really talk about all the ins and outs of this and why it's so important to talk about the survey. So let's just talk a little bit about that cohort of 20 people who are working to remove barriers for all of those entities, the businesses, the parents, the child care workers, owners. Just talk about that cohort that we have.
Yeah, so you did a really great job of identifying some people from all of those areas. And like you said, there's a group of about 20 of us. The chamber, the city, the county. You've gotten a couple of representatives from our regional partners like Mid-Minnesota Development Commission, Southwest Initiative Foundation, some representatives from the hospital, the college. We've got childcare providers themselves, and then also representatives of the business community and the school as well.
Yeah, and having parents who are actually in the midst of it, where many of the people on the cohort already are. Some people have been asked specifically as parents, but you yourself are a parent with kids in daycare. And so I think it's really important for people to see that there's a breadth of knowledge and experiences that are coming together for this. And we're right now expected to work 18 to 24 months together.
Correct.
Depending on what our goals are. But we're not even sure what those goals are yet. So why don't you talk a little bit about the survey?
Yeah, so we're kind of in the first of what we've maybe categorized as 3 different phases. The first one is gathering data, and a big part of that is going to be our survey. So I think up here on the screen you can see we've got one of the surveys available is for parents only. So that's going to be questions specifically tailored to the parent perspective of childcare issues. We've also got a survey specifically tailored to employers as well, because they're experiencing their own challenges with their employees having childcare issues. And then I'll also note, if you are an employer who's also a parent, you should take both of those surveys because they have different questions on each of them, and we need those different perspectives.
Very good point.
Yes.
Very good point. So you filled out the parent survey earlier. How long did it take you to do?
5 minutes.
If even that,
Yeah.
right? It
Yep.
just doesn't take very long. Because we don't need a lot of information. We just need very specific information. And I think that that's one of the important parts about the survey, is that we're going to actually use the information.
Yep.
People go, oh, you took a survey, how nice. But what are we going to actually do with that?
Well, First Children's Finance has a lot of resources that give us a good snapshot on kind of what's going on in the community already, based off of their statistics and data that they're able to gather. But that's going to be maybe a little bit different than the information we're going to get from the survey, or maybe the survey results are going to reinforce the data that First Children's
And I
Finance
think that
has.
Matt can show us, we had a slide that we were going to show that has a little bit of information. This is 31 communities that have already participated in the project in the state, with 1,000 new child care slots. And right now here in Hutchinson, in McLeod County, we think there's...
Yeah, I think there are like 847 is the number that comes to mind for the county-wide, and I think a majority of those, like 440-ish, are in the Hutchinson School District alone.
And that's not even including, that's not all just 55350.
Right.
I mean, it's just in the district.
Yep.
And of those 31 communities, obviously you can see, almost 1,200 people have come together like we are to help make this happen. So this is going to give us opportunity to be able to say, okay, it looks like we need centers, or how do we help people who are interested in doing daycare in their home? How do we help them make that happen?
Yeah. And also, I mean, it can identify certain unique situations within our community that maybe aren't the same in other communities that have participated, these 31 other communities. We know Hutchinson has a lot of manufacturing jobs and a lot of healthcare jobs, and a lot of those don't come with typical 9 to 5 hours, where that's where you traditionally have your hours of daycare. So maybe through this process, we're going to identify that that's where our need is.
Right. And I think that's important that you note that, because we do have a lot of shift, second and third shift people who are working. And I know that we have someone from 3M that's on our committee, and he talked about the fact that he's got people who, they have a gap because parents are working different shifts. So they're not seeing each other, but they're taking care of their children. But they might overlap by 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And although I did suggest he just take them in his HR room for a little bit, he wasn't keen on that. But what are the things that can happen to help that situation? And we're hoping that we'll also find from other communities, maybe they had the same situations, and maybe they came up with some unique solutions. And that's what this is about. It's about solution seeking. It's not about, well, we can't do that because. This is about, okay, that's a barrier. How are we going to get over it?
Yep. What's the right-sized solution for us to get through those barriers?
Now you can all see why I brought her. She's so smart. So you talked about the fact that First Children's Finance is doing this, and this is all they do.
Yep. They are childcare experts by all that I've seen.
Yeah. So their staff literally is helping other communities like ours. And I think there are 6 or 8 that they're working on right now. And then they'll start new cohorts as other ones phase out as well.
But that's not all that they do. They also provide the training to child care providers, the ongoing education that is necessary to keep their licensing. They also provide, business support like startup help and assistance, financial modeling and analysis, crisis intervention.
Absolutely.
And then, as their name indicates, most importantly, they, not most importantly, but
huge factors.
Huge factors. They provide access to capital through traditional lending and grants as well.
Yeah, you said that very well. More eloquently than I would have for sure. They've got some bucks in their back pocket and they can help you. That's probably what it would come out to say. So yeah, they've also been helping already established daycares in our community already and have been for a while. And we know that there's been some recent situations that have increased our need substantially, but they were already working with a number of people here in the community, which is great because they've already seen what we do and what we're about.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember when they came in and were doing some of this initial data that they were gathering on our community. What really stood out to me, they found that we have 4 daycare centers currently and 31 family-based providers. But of those 31 family-based providers, 58% of them are at what they consider to be a critical time period, which is statistically in childcare, home providers who are less than 5 years of experience or over 20 years of being open and operating are at that critical stage of almost closing. So providing that ongoing existing support to the providers that are out in the community right now is really important.
Yeah, really important. So when we started, we had a full day, all of us together, learning and hearing the same information. And I just remember being gobstopped at some of the numbers of families that if they could have daycare, they would utilize it. And number of people who are getting by with the help of a neighbor, grandma, auntie.
Those legal, unlicensed childcare options, which are how they're meeting that 440-something childcare slots needed in Hutchinson right now. Which there's a very fine line between the legal, unlicensed, and the illegal, unlicensed. And maybe making awareness out there about somebody may not knowingly be operating an illegal, unlicensed daycare in their home.
Because you can only care for one family.
Correct.
Without that licensure.
Yep.
And a lot of people, like you said, don't realize that. And parents, unless they're doing a lot of homework, I almost want to say they're desperate enough that they don't do the homework. They just hear that there's somebody willing to take care of their child. They feel like they're safe. And there they go.
Right.
It's fair to say. Yeah. So what are some of the things that we know that this cohort will be working on coming up in October, November?
Yeah, I know we've kind of tried to start keying in on some dates, but maybe we're not quite ready to announce the time and place yet until some things are a little bit solidified. But we know our first outreach event is going to be focused on daycare providers only. And we're calling it an appreciation event because we do want to support them and recognize the work that they're doing right now. But it's also an opportunity to inform them of what we're doing with this program and the resources that are available to them through this program, and that we're going to hopefully be alleviating some of the strain that they've been experiencing and maybe some of the fatigue from trying to, I talked to somebody recently who works in childcare who had like a 90-hour week recently. So we definitely want to make them feel appreciated.
Absolutely.
But also there's an opportunity for First Children's Finance to provide some of the training for continuing education for their licensure. And then also gather additional important feedback from the providers themselves on what the issues that they're seeing are.
So it was really surprising to me that they said this, it's really important for us to get a foothold with the daycare providers, because many times they hear this is happening and they think we want to impose more regulations, which
Right.
is not the case at all. We want to help, as you said, alleviate some of the situations that they are in.
Especially knowing 58% of those home-based providers are at that critical
Right.
point where they maybe need a little bit more resources and support too.
I remember
Succeed.
talking to a mom. I talked to a couple of moms. It was actually, and I think I shared this story at the JC Water Carnival Commodore dinner, and they always ask me to give a little bit of a chamber update, and I shared with them that we were going to be working on this child care program, which that group, of course, 40 and under, were like riveted to the conversation and asked a lot of questions. But it really hadn't come up to me before that people were really, truly planning their families around daycare openings. And one gal was telling me that they're trying to plan their next child based on an opening, and then they just got the word that their daycare provider will be retiring next year.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and we've seen a lot of emotional conversations happen around closures, changes. It's hard for parents and it's hard for the little ones as well.
Yeah, and I think through this program, we really focus on that birth to age 5 that keeps coming up because, like you said, that change is hard on kids, and the impacts of those changes and instability and inconsistency, or maybe, not having the most ideal childcare situation for them, how that can impact you with school readiness and future job success and community involvement down the line.
Yeah, there is a ripple effect that happens, and we
Yep.
want to negate that.
Yeah, and I think that story you shared about that person planning their family around childcare availability is not uncommon, because the surveys that First Children's Finance has done in these programs throughout Minnesota has shown, I think it was, they said 51 or 52% of parents indicated that they also make those decisions based on childcare availability as well and affordability.
So if you think you're planning around not your own family schedule, you're planning around somebody else's, and we know that miraculous surprises happen, that changes the dynamic for a family very quickly if they don't have that available to them. And so that's why I'm really excited about this. Obviously, I have my own children are no longer children, they're having children. And so, I see it from a different perspective as a grandparent. Yes, thank you very much, everyone. Yes, I am a grandparent, I'm a grandmama, and I love it. But I'm way too young. Stop. No, I'm really way too young. But when you worry about your children, and then you worry about your children's children and what are the environments that they're in, will they be able to, or will I as a grandparent need to help? I'm still in the workforce, and we're not really ready to not be in the workforce so we can do daycare. And I'm sorry, I am old. There are things that don't work anymore as well as they used to. And so that's another burden on another generation of people. And some are very happy to do it, and bless up for those who do. But it's just another level that I think that people don't really take into consideration. They go, oh, well, grandma can watch them. Grandma's trying to, get a foothold on what retirement looks like, or how much PTO does she have to help.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think about a lot, and I know that businesses are thinking about that too. And in fact, I've been on some business visits where families have brought their kids and they hang out in the front offices while mom finishes the last hour, or dad's going to be ready off of his shift to be able to pick them up. It does happen.
Yes.
Let's avoid that. Shall we? I think so. So after that appreciation event, we have something else that we want the public to know about.
Yep. So we're looking probably sometime around the end of November, we'll have a more public event for everybody to come to, which will be the town hall. And what we're planning on doing at the town hall is, another way to engage and inform the public about what we're doing and why it's important. But we'll also have those survey results to go through where we can really start to identify what are our goals, what's that right-sized solution for Hutchinson, and really start going down that path of what's next for us.
Because we know as a group of 20 people that we really want to expand that next circle of people engaged.
All the community involvement, because it is a community-wide issue. It's not just employers, it's not just kids with parents, or parents with kids.
Yep.
It's everybody. It really impacts everybody.
Yeah. And so we want to expand that circle of influence as we go through this process, because 20 people can have different ideas, and one person can walk in and go, I've got the space, or I can make this happen with whatever resource that they might have. So do be thinking about that and sharing that with others as well. So we have that parent survey that I want to show again, and you can find it on our website at explorehutchinson.com. And you can find it in our newsletter. We're trying to put it everywhere. We even have it in our windows now. This is the parent one because it's such a broad group of people. We really want to get that out in the public in a lot of different ways. So if you're sitting at home right now and you've got your phone and you can zip over and grab that code right there with your phone, you just have to hover your camera over it and it should show you, would you like to link to this? You can click yes. You can save that and send it to other people, or if you're a parent, you can take that survey. The other ones are on our website as well.
Yeah. We're sharing that on Facebook and Instagram as well, right?
Yes.
Or plan to.
Yes.
So another way to circulate it out to your network of parent friends.
I'm hoping that when we post that on Facebook, we get 1,000 shares.
That'd be great.
That would be great because it's so important to people.
It is.
For us to be able to do the best work we can with the most information possible. Any suggestions that you have for people who are like, oh, I sat up a little bit taller. This is an interesting conversation. Maybe I'd like to be part of it. Do you have suggestions for them?
Yeah, I would say, you can get in touch with anybody involved on the core team. Mary, myself, Miles is another good connection. He's Miles Seppold from the EDA here in Hutchinson. We can get you a list of the people who you could talk to, but make sure you show up at the town hall event. Make sure you fill out the survey. Make sure you just let people know what's going on so that the word's out there.
Yep. And if you have more questions right now and want to pick up the phone, while you're watching this, our office hours are a little bit different in September because we have this little event called Arts and Crafts. But you can call 587-5252 and get more information if you're wondering about that. What makes this good, exciting, important for you right now? Because you play a couple different roles.
Yeah, well, like you mentioned already, I'm a parent. I have 3 daycare-aged kids. And the quick story, the tagline that I like to say related to this program is that I lived in Hutchinson for 3.5 years now, and I have gone through 5 childcare situations, scenarios, just in my own experience, which is stressful on me and my husband, my employer, my kids. So I realized that that's a real problem from a parent's perspective, but also from my work perspective as economic development, the workforce impacts that we're having. We already have a really low unemployment rate here in Hutchinson. I think it's 2.3%. How do we maximize removing barriers to getting people into the workforce who want to be in the workforce? I think that's the key that's come up in our conversation, is that it's fine if not everybody participates in the workforce, but it should be a choice, not out of necessity.
Because you have to stay home with your kids.
Yep.
Some people want to, and that's great, but there are some people who really are driven to be able to work outside the home, and that's important. One other thing that I learned that a lot of people don't really, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Because somebody has a daycare doesn't mean that they take infants.
Yeah, that was a big takeaway for me as well. Basically, it can be summarized that infants lose money in daycare.
Yep.
So
yeah,
that might be why it's harder for you to find an infant daycare position.
And families, there are many families in our community that take an older child or children to one place and an infant to another.
Yep, I do that myself.
And that's,
It's a lot of running around in the morning before you even get to your daytime job.
which means that you're getting up earlier,
Yep.
you're getting your kids ready and up earlier. I'm in my head going, oh, back in the day, I would have fallen over. But you do what you have to do
Yep.
in the moments that you're there,
Yeah,
right?
and some of those are those small impacts to the employer too. Maybe you're showing up late for work, you're having to leave early, you last minute have to be out for the day because something changed with your childcare situation, and those, are workable, but when they keep adding up and reoccurring, then that
Yep.
becomes a problem for productivity at work.
Yeah. Thank you so much for making the time. I know that your schedule is just as packed as everybody else's, but this is such an important conversation, and I really appreciate you being here to help me explain all of this, because there's a lot to grasp, and I just appreciate that you took the time.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking me.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, if you have more questions about what this means for Hutchinson, or how potentially your family can help, or maybe it's something that you're interested in, give us a call at 587-5252, and we'll do our best to direct you to the right place, the right people, the right resources. And until we see you again, have a great month.